Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to the BFC, where we go into the trenches of the trading world. Great episode for you guys today. Today we are joined by the CEO of Nakamoto, NASDAQ ticker NAKA, Mr. David Bailey, and CEO Devin Soni of Matador Technologies Incorporated, OTCQB, MATAF, ticker MATAF. Gentlemen, welcome to Buffalo Fireside Chats. How we doing?
Doing great. Good. Here. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And so I want to get right to the nitty gritty, and I'm going to start with Devin. So David, don't be sad because I have a lot of questions for you too. So I want to start with Devin. He's the CEO of MATAF, Matador Technologies. In July, Matador secured a $100 million financing facility to accelerate Bitcoin treasury growth, something that we're seeing a lot of in the market. But in the OTC, that's a huge, huge freaking number. The company outlined goals of reaching 1,000 Bitcoin by 2026 and even more ambitiously, 6,000 Bitcoin by 2027. How is the current outlook on achieving these milestones?
We feel really good. Obviously, for a lot of reasons, we'd love to see Bitcoin a little higher right now, but definitely creates a buying opportunity for companies that are well capitalized and aggressive and have a long-term strategy. And I think for us, with the numbers where they are, with the capital where it is, we expect to continue to be really aggressive and hope to hit those goals.
Awesome. And those are amazing goals, by the way. So it's nice to see that in the OTC, especially. Is Matador purely focused on expanding Bitcoin treasury strategy, or are blockchain products also in development? And how does Matador generate revenue through its core business model?
So at a high level, we're very, very focused, on the Bitcoin ecosystem. So everything we do at Matador is Bitcoin. A big part of that is the Bitcoin accumulation. We are leaning into generating yield on our Bitcoin, which can drive additional value, let us buy more BTC. When we think about the operating side of the business, we continue to look at Bitcoin both as a store of value, but it's also sort of an operating system as it evolves. So we will continue to evaluate ways to monetize our Bitcoin, to participate in other parts of the ecosystem as Bitcoin scales. But when we think about today and where our dollars and mind share are going, they're really focused on accumulating and acquiring more Bitcoin.
Right on. And I absolutely makes sense. And I want to ask about HODL systems. Hold on for dear life. I'm just going to say HODL. That's how we say this, right?
That's right.
So on May 29th, and this, I love the crypto terminology, by the way. On May 29th, 2025, you guys signed a binding letter of intent to invest up to $3.2 million into HODL systems through a share warrant structure. So what does HODL systems do, and how does it benefit Matador?
Well, one of the things we learned, and certainly one of the things we learned from Team Nakamoto, is while Bitcoin is really, really global, it operates in various markets, and each of those markets can be really different. And for us, we spent a whole bunch of time thinking about the ecosystem and realized how important India and that Indian market could be for Bitcoin. Really, really culturally significant. I think you have a culture of savers, a culture of, over 100 million sort of, people with brokerage accounts, a billion mobile phone accounts, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of new brokerage accounts opening monthly. So we see a real demand for assets and investing, but it's been a market where historically Bitcoin has been, sort of a four-letter word, so to speak, where it's been really tricky to get right because of the capital controls and some of those kind of ecosystems. So we think HODL, in the same way that, things like MicroStrategy and the ETF opened up and democratized Bitcoin holdings for, people in markets like North America, we expect HODL to be a vehicle to open up Bitcoin investing in India for every single person that has a brokerage account, which is, in the hundreds of millions at this point. So for us, while it's taking, a while to get things right on the regulatory side, to go through their go public process, which, I think everyone has seen in these spaces, everyone has their own, market there. For us, we see it as a big part of Matador is expanding into India.
Right on. And when can investors and shareholders expect to hear additional updates on that?
We'll share those as soon as we have them. It's one of those things where we work on it daily. Sometimes you don't see the swimming fiercely under the surface, but I think we expect the next quarter or two to make some really material announcements regarding HODL, especially as India is working on their own sort of digital asset strategy. And when that comes out, we expect to sort of launch quickly behind that.
Excellent. Simultaneous. Love it. Does Matador implement investment strategies to purchase Bitcoin at optimal prices, or does the company seek to purchase Bitcoin at any near-term price?
I would say, I think Michael Saylor had a pretty good statement here, which is, we like Bitcoin at more or less any price because, we're sort of long-term holders. I think that's certainly the case. When we have available capital and available balance sheet capital, we're spending it on BTC. I think, yes, will we go, deploy $1 billion on, open market on Uniswap? Probably not, just to not impact the market. But I think, within reason, we're just generally buyers when we have the balance sheet to do so.
Right on. I know from like an investment perspective or trader's perspective, when you invest in something, and I've done it with my own stocks that I invest in or crypto, you buy it when it's high, you buy it when it's low because you're adding value nonetheless. That's something that you believe in that's going to create value in the long term. So
dollars cost averaging the move. Absolutely.
Now, we got David Bailey here, founder of Bitcoin Incorporated and CEO of Nakamoto NASDAQ, ticker NAKA. And you have an impressive resume, man. So I want to talk to you a little bit. What value do you bring here to Matador's Bitcoin strategy and direction?
Well, I think the value that we bring is really as a investor and backer that has purview into the global Bitcoin market. Whether that's on the industry side, the retail side, the investor side, we touch the Bitcoin market in a lot of different ways. And I think a lot of the things that we just discussed that Sunny just mentioned, have mirrored the experiences that we've had, going into many of these different markets. I mean, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do with these Bitcoin securities is make Bitcoin as easy as possible for people to get exposure to, no matter where they are, anywhere in the world. And, why we backed this team is like, we were excited to bring Bitcoin to Canada. Likewise, I think that there are some markets that are huge untapped markets right now, India being one of them, that if we could break into and give an easy vehicle for people to get exposure to Bitcoin, would just be explosive and massive. So the value that we bring is like, we have a view into these different marketplaces, and we work with our portfolio companies to try to capture the value from opportunities as they present themselves in up markets and in down markets.
Yeah. And, it's just going to keep happening. It's just going to keep growing, mainstreaming. That's what's going to happen. So the awareness, as you and I were actually talking about yesterday, we did a short segment yesterday, totally important. Devin brought up Michael Saylor, and this guy, the chairman of a strategy, I believe he's a chairman, they have 700,000 Bitcoin. This guy is all in on this, but Matador Technologies was spotted on Michael Saylor's watch list. So what steps is the company taking to further attract large institutional investors such as Saylor?
Well, I think Michael's an incredible visionary. I think that, one thing that I've learned from Michael's success is the power of telling a simple story again and again and again, and for having conviction, even when the market doubts you. And I mean, he's been tested many times in his career. And so if you can do those two things well, you can inspire a huge amount of impact broadly. And so what Michael started as a one of one. I mean, he was the first public company to put Bitcoin on his balance sheet in any meaningful way. Has now, captured the imagination of over 200 public companies and millions of shareholders. And so there's just a lot of power to ideas that you're willing to stand behind with conviction and keep focused. So I forget what the rest of the question was.
Well, basically, like, and this could go to Devin too, like basically attracting larger institutional investors such as Saylor.
I think just to round that out, I think what Michael's focused on building strategy. And so, likewise, I don't know how many companies he's investing to in the broader marketplace, but I think what any serious investor is looking for is great executors and operators who have a track record and experience at performing. And, no one expects these management teams to be able to pick the price of Bitcoin. That's the best entry point. And I think that was one of your questions earlier, actually, like to Saylor's point, you have a thesis, you execute on the thesis. And as long as the thesis is valid, it doesn't really matter if you're buying Bitcoin at 70K or 100K or 200K or 10K. You just stick to the strategy. And so, I think that's what serious investors want to see. And I think that's what Matador is focused on doing. And the more execution they bring, the more capital they'll attract.
It makes total sense. Like I was mentioning earlier, like Devin was mentioning earlier, it's like you see, all right, I'm investing in MATF. Oh my gosh, Bitcoin's crushing now. What? Yeah, buy more Bitcoin. It really is when you have high conviction and you can see the overall broader markets and the global markets and how people are adapting. It's common sense at that point.
I don't want to pick on Canadians, but I know Bitcoin's down, a bit. Is it down as much as the Canadian dollar's been down over the past couple of years?
About the same, actually.
About the same.
Yeah.
Okay, so at least Bitcoin's volatile both on the way up and on the way down. Canadian dollars, US dollars, they're just, all the way down.
You see in Buffalo, we're part Canadian here because we're like literally a stone's throw away from Canada.
Yep. No, the other side of that, like you said, right, is no matter what's happening to the price of Bitcoin, every currency on earth is inflating and Bitcoin is not. So buying Bitcoin today is still cheaper than buying Bitcoin tomorrow, no matter what the price is. It's always just sound policy.
Right on. I got to ask you, David. There are hundreds of public companies adopting Bitcoin treasury strategies. What influenced your decision to join Matador specifically?
Well, Matador was first off really early to this whole strategy. And I think they have one thing I've been consistently impressed with the Matador team on is just having the vision to identify opportunities and jump on them quickly and execute. What also, two things that jumped out to us about the Matador team or opportunity. One is the team and experienced operators with public companies that have long track records in the Canadian markets, which we found that you need to have that specialized nuance understanding of not just the broader markets, but your specific market. And they also, we want to find the most compelling markets in the world to plan to flag in. And I think Canada, even though it has had its challenges, is one of the most fantastic markets on the planet and needs to have a standard bearer who is waving the flags in the Canadian capital markets. And so Matador's done an incredible job. But the job is not even close to getting started. I mean, we have so far to go. But that's really what attracted us to it, is we want to find people who can execute and execute well.
Yeah, and like you said, not even started, and you guys are in the top 100 holders of Bitcoin treasury, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's pretty damn impressive.
Grinding up. I think we're one of the few that are still buying, so I think we're kind of grinding up there.
That's amazing. Devin, I have a bunch more questions for you. And Dave, feel free to chime in at any time. All right. So the company recently filed a Form 20 to the SEC as a step towards uplisting to the NASDAQ. What additional steps are required to complete the uplisting process? And is there an estimated timeline for the completion of it?
Well, I think from our perspective, what's required really is doing the work to get the approvals of the regulatory bodies. And that's kind of the SEC and an exchange. So those are really the two steps. We can push as hard as we want. Everyone's going to take their own time, as I think everyone that's kind of been a part of a public company realizes these things take time. So for us, our intent is certainly to be a public traded company, on the NASDAQ or a major exchange in the US in the next quarter or two. With government shutdowns and timelines and things like that, you never know what happens there. But for us, I think we're kind of rowing as fast as we can to get there, and I expect it to be in the next quarter or so.
Right on. Excellent. As Bitcoin becomes a larger percentage of Matador's balance sheet, how does the company think about risk management and treasury safeguards, such as, things during periods like you just mentioned of extreme volatility and as things continue to develop and pass, especially that's going on in Congress?
Absolutely. I would say that for us, we've been really, really focused on safeguarding diversification. So when we started, we really leaned in on BitGo as our primary custodian and, sort of strong multi-party authentication to secure our BTC. I think as we evolve and scale, we are adding to our custodians, our vendor list very slowly but surely. I think the second thing is, we've all, at least David and I, a bunch of people in this space have been in the process of seeing, the Celsius of the world and the FTX of the world. And there's a lot of times where you can do things with your Bitcoin to generate yield. You can loan it out. You can be, really aggressive with those sorts of things. And I think if you've been around the market, I think I bought my first BTC in 2012 or 2013. I've seen every possible thing go wrong. It's been a speed run through financial disaster for people that are not kind of protected. So, for me, it's just kind of protect your Bitcoin, leave it on your balance sheet, leave it with a custodian, Those are kind of things 101, but I think everyone has to learn those the hard way. And I've, learned those the hard way personally, like 7 or 8 times, and definitely not doing it here at Matador. So I think we're very, measure twice, cut once with vendors, partners, things like that.
Right on. Measure twice, cut once. Smart way to do things.
Learn from my mom, right?
You know how I learned it? A lot of mistakes. A lot of mistakes. Now, I want to ask you, how does management internally measure success beyond headline Bitcoin numbers? Are there specific metrics or benchmarks the team uses to evaluate whether the strategy is truly creating long-term shareholder value?
Absolutely. I mean, I think for us, the important things are we are staying true to the strategy. And this is a bit of a chip away strategy, not a swing for home runs. You're really getting base hits. And for us, our base hits are reducing our overall cost of management on a day-to-day basis so that we can grow our balance sheet as our capital grows, right? Like, so for us, it's like, okay, well, how what can we do with 3 or 4 people that it may take a normal company 10 people to do? How can we sort of grind down our vendors? How can we automate systems and processes? This stuff's not fun, but these 2, 3, 4, 5, 10% a year kind of gains compound significantly over time when your goal is really to build a balance sheet, right? So we're not quite, sort of an ETF. And I think we have a lot of advantages and tools over those, with leveraging public company tools. But at the same time, we can keep our cost base low. We can generate yield. We can sort of not lose basis. We can make money on every trade we do. These are all kind of blocking and tackling. We can kind of be out on the market and get more eyeballs and attention, and shareholders accumulate, a few hundred shareholders a week. If we do those sorts of things, they compound over time in a way that may not be like the most glamorous thing in the world, like, renting out naming a sports stadium or something like that. But I think like those are things that make a difference over, 5 and 10 years.
Right on. I also want to bring up Trevor Koverko. I think I'm saying that correctly. Is that correct? Yep. Koverko?
You got it.
Yeah. So he's another standout name on Matador's team. So his experience includes being co-founder of Polymath, Polymesh, and Tokens.com. What impact has Trevor had on Matador so far, and does the company benefit from his expertise?
I'll say first, absolutely. I mean, there's very few people that I've worked with in my, kind of 40, plus years of life that just are true visionaries. They're always kind of early to the puck, so to speak. And, pun intended, as a former hockey player. But I think for him, he's also done one of the things that David mentioned, which is just really, clearly define opportunities, help package those into really simple value propositions for partners and stakeholders in a way that create kind of win-wins. And also, thirdly, I would just say just building a brand and building marketing. I think, Matador was the name itself was probably Trevor's original idea. I think he owned the domain. So like, I think, in areas like this, he's been just a fantastic resource.
Wow. That's amazing.
And I just like add to that, these are the things that honestly, when I was talking about the team earlier, like Devin's track record, Trevor's track record, Sonny's track record, like you just can't buy those things. Like those are not like it comes through the experience of like living the Bitcoin journey as it's played out so far, and the experience that you gain through that process. And it gives you vision about where this is all going. It gives you conviction and why you're going to hold the asset because you've been through this before. It helps you avoid the mistakes of blowing up your entire balance sheet that, every genius boy wonder, who comes to do it, it does in some capacity. So, I think like this is like the most experienced, one of the most experienced public market teams for our industry that there is. And I've known Trevor since probably 2013 or 2014. And, truly has had the vision, this entire time. And like, not that it hasn't been tested, but has had the vision. And I think like that's something that is immensely valuable and extremely rare.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with what you guys are saying. And, and I wanted to save the question about him, towards the end of this, because I wanted to ask about corporate governance and, and transparency. What role does that play? I mean, I could already tell based on how you guys are talking about him and how you're talking about the team, David. Particularly though, as the company attracts more institutional attention and prepares for a potential uplisting, how does that roll? Is that still going to build? Is it going to grow? Are we going to add more people to the board? Give me a little bit of insight there.
I think for us, it's really important to make sure that we have, sort of a well-defined long-term plan, that we've got a board that's aligned with that that we've got a team that's aligned with that. And then, we bring in kind of teams and resources to sort of help us execute. So the nice thing about the Bitcoin ecosystem that I love is it's really kind of, there's almost a village around it of people that are kind of trusted counterparties. So for us, when we want to do something, whether that's generate yield, whether that's, trying to create more content, whether that's, be active in M&A, whether it's uplist to the NASDAQ, like there's been a really strong ecosystem around us. So, we're really focused internally on making sure we, an analogy twice, measure twice, cut once on bringing full-time teams and overhead and costs into the organization. At the same time, I think, we've got a wide enough as an ecosystem Rolodex to generate, the value we need to have a trusted network of people around us that we can use and leverage when there are opportunities and decisions to be made. We've got a very active advisory board, which I think we'll continue to add to. I think as we grow, we'll certainly add to our board. I think there are certainly opportunities to build on, sort of the core Bitcoin team around the capital market side, around, structured credit, M&A. These are all areas that are really important to us and are going to be important as the company grows. But I think we're going to look at those, again, really, really deliberately with a time and a place in mind.
Right on. I want to first thank you guys for coming on, and I want to give you each a chance to talk to investors or potential investors. David, I'm going to start with you, and I'm going to finish with Devin. Devin, your message to the BFC and OTC and the trader and crypto community.
So for me, I think the thing that I would just say is, like you mentioned, there's, a few hundred companies in the digital asset treasury space, probably 100 or 200 that own Bitcoin on the balance sheet. For us, we're really, really focused on, I think some companies did this because they believe in it. Like David mentioned, we started this journey back in, 2021, 22. We went public in 2024 before, DATs were even a concept or a phrase. I think there's probably 2 or 3 companies that held BTC at the time that we launched. For us, this is a long march that we're very excited to join with shareholders. We're really focused on attracting people that, like the vision, like sort of the accumulate, hold, stay steady in any market, raise capital in any market, buy Bitcoin in any market type of ecosystem. We're not, over levered. We have the ability to continue to buy. We get to do some of these things, a little bit under the radar, being up north where, there's a lot less bodies. So I think sometimes we get less of the scrutiny, both on the positive and negative. But I think that lets us execute on our vision and our strategy, which I think is really, really aligned with being a top, 25, 10 like Bitcoin holder over time, right? We're going to be doing this for a whole long time.
Awesome. David, it's all yours.
I would just say in this business, you want to bet on people who have been around for quite a while. We've been buying Bitcoin since $10, $100, $1,000. Now we've been at 100,000. We're going to be buying Bitcoin at $1 million, 10 million. This is like the march of inevitability. And you want to bet and back on a team that understands that, is focused on that. And, at the end of the day, we are building balance sheets of the soundest money on the planet, the best performing asset on the planet. So we're building robust balance sheets in public markets that preserve our optionality as operators to go and create value. And whether that means acquiring businesses or building operating companies or running capital market arbitrage strategies, these are all things available to us to do when we have the optionality of a strong, robust balance sheet that can endure over time. And so it's going to be exciting to watch this all unfold. It's very, very, very early, but Bitcoin is coming to every public balance sheet in every market on the planet. And you need to find the right opportunities and the right teams to back and to ride along with in the ride. And it's a long ride, and the bear markets are brutal and ugly, but the best opportunities and value creation happens during the bear markets. And you won't see the dividends of that until the bull markets. But if you that's what comes with having a long-term time perspective. So anyway, I welcome everyone to come on this journey with us. It's not for the faint of heart, but it's also immensely rewarding. And I'll see you at $1 million Bitcoin price.
Excellent. Long term. I love it. And you have to have to develop in a bear market. You have to have a spine of steel. And you know what? You guys seem like you have an excellent plan. I look forward to watching your journey, and go keep kicking ass, guys. You guys are doing great. That is David Bailey and Devin Soni of Matador Technologies. ticker MATAF. You can find them on the OTCQB. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. You're welcome anytime for an update.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cheers.